dog support system in the background with a new bone. I think we're ready to go. Um, Good news. It's Saturday morning and my alarm did go off, and I was able to turn it off so it didn't have to go off every 5 minutes after that. I set up about 38 alarm just in cases this morning because I didn't want to miss this one. So it went off. Good thing is I was already up for about 20 minutes before. So very excited about this morning. We are we got a fun one today. It is Saturday morning here. My name is Jeff. I'm coming to you from under the porch. We are welcoming you to getting back to zero. It's a place where we get to begin again. And I'm going to thank Kathy for that little shout out. I really like that little thing, but getting back to zero, a place where we get to begin again. Get to start our lives over again from a place where we're hopefully free of the chains that we carried for years. From primarily alcohol abuse, which I did. So glad you're here. I have not even introduced our guest yet, and I'm already seeing all sorts of messages popping up telling me to shut up and just let her talk. So I want to thank all the support from everyone there. So heard this crazy person with a very funny accent talk about on a Zoom meeting for TLC, the luckiest club, I don't know, 5 months ago or so. And like everyone else that was fortunate enough to meet her, fell in love with her, was instantly inspired by her, and was fortunate enough to be filled with a lot of hope about life's possibilities because of her. So today we are celebrating a soberversary of hers. Today is 12 years for her. Can't wait to hear how she did it, what the journey was. But this is a guest that I'm so thrilled that she is joining us today. Possibly she's been a major tool for me as far as with my sobriety journey. Again, she just her smile says it all. But want to welcome Louise from across the pond, as they say, to getting back to zero. Good morning, Louise. You there? I'm looking.
I'm coming. I'm here.
There you are.
I'm
hey.
Here. Yes.
Well,
hello.
Welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Lovely
What
to be
is
here.
I know you're the time zone. What is your day right now? Because I'm at 8 o'clock Eastern time.
1 o'clock.
Okay,
so 1 o'clock lunchtime.
How's the soberversary going?
It's good. Very quietly. Two teenagers who kind of go, "Oh, should we be celebrating this? Is it important?
Is it important?
Is it important?" I told my son's girlfriend yesterday afternoon what I was doing today because it was my soberversary, and she said, "Oh, that's amazing! Wow, well done." And my son turned around to me and said, "Is that what we're supposed to say?" And I was like, "Well, yes, kind of."
Well, I thought
it's a piece of cake.
I thought you stopped celebrating after like 1 or 2 years because you got this. There's no need to worry about it anymore. You've perfected this journey.
Don't go there. Don't go there.
I'm going to do what my wife and everyone else that's on here has been telling me to do, and that's just shut up and let you talk. But I want to hear your story because I have not heard this. So
okay.
What got you here today? And I'm just going to sit back and listen.
Okay. Are we going to hold you to that? I'm intrigued.
No,
I'm intrigued by this. It's not going to last the whole time, is it?
And if you go on for longer, and only people on TLC will know this, but if you go on for longer than an hour and a half, I'm going to have to raise the little blue signal to let you know that you've gone over. But no, Go ahead.
So I've got 90 minutes. Fantastic. I'll do my best. So I always start my journey with the point of change. It was the end of March 2009. I'd been out for a drink with some parents from school. I guess you probably have parent clubs where parents get together to raise money for things and create committees and stuff. And I was on one of those committees at school. My kids were 6 and 8 at the time, and we'd gone out for a drink to do some work. The next thing I know is I'm stood on a country lane looking at my car in a ditch, and I know I drove into it because I climbed out of it. I don't remember getting into the car. Don't remember putting the key in the lock. Don't remember driving out of the pub car park. Don't remember driving it past any of the houses and any of the cars, but I definitely did because I'm the one that climbed out of it. and it completely freaked me out. I went back to the house of somebody I'd been out with, and he was an absolute star. He got on some overalls. His wife made me a coffee. He got a rope. He said to me, and I will never forget this. He said to me, "I knew I should have taken your keys off you." And I can still feel how affronted I was at that statement he made, you know, regardless of the fact that I had just walked away from it in a ditch. I was so put out. Mm-hmm. How dare you? How dare you insinuate that I should have had my keys taken off me? And then, you know, and then he got me home. He got my car out of the ditch. He helped me get it back. It was fine. And then the next morning I got up to look at it, and it was completely okay. There wasn't a scratch, not a dent, not nothing. You wouldn't know. But I felt so cold. I mean, my drinking had always, you know, it's one of those things that had always been uncomfortable. It had never been a happy thing. It would always be an evening of not knowing whether it was going to be a good night or a bad night. And that was one of those nights. I drank to what I now know is called a blackout since I was 18 and a half at university. My very first drink in what we call Freshers Week had been a couple of pints in the bar with some girls I'd just met who I was going to be living with. And then I woke up the next day to find this guy on my floor in his underwear with no idea of how he'd got there. I don't remember talking to him. I don't remember what his name was. I just woke up and found him there. And then that just kind of set a pattern. I've got no idea what I said to people. I've got no idea what they said to me. It was just what I did, you know. Every so often I'd go out and I'd not remember what I was doing, and I would be a nightmare. I would be uncontrollable, unmanageable. I'd be vocally outrageous, never mind behaving in an outrageous way. I would be completely vulnerable with myself. So I would quite often end up with guys I didn't know, in places I didn't know. I've slept on a park bench before. I've come home and slept on the couch and left the front door wide open on the main road, living with other girls. I was just liability.
Did people know that you were having these issues then, or were you just considered the fun girl at that time?
I think people knew. As to whether they really believed me when I said I don't remember, I think people thought I was just covering my arse, you know. When I said I had no idea what I did or what I said, I don't think people believed me. I think people thought I was just, you know, pretending, because I didn't want to face up to the reality. And then I did this thing of going out with lots of different people. So I never went out with the same people every night. I would go out with different people all the time. So no one person saw everything I did. I shared it. I very kindly gave it out to several different friends to have to cope with the trauma of drinking with me.
You're a kind person. You're a very kind person to share.
Loving like that. And so I don't think anybody called me out on it. And it wasn't really until that point when I was looking at my car that I looked at it. I just refused to acknowledge that there was anything that I could do about it. It felt to me like it was just, you know, it's just me. I'm not very big. I can drink a lot, so I can take the volume. I would quite often make myself sick so I could drink more. I was a pint drinker mostly when I went out, which is kind of like I don't know, it's a pint in half a litre. And I could drink a lot. And I could take it, and I could go out for a drink with the boys. I drank mostly with men, not women, because women drank short, stupid drinks, and I didn't see the point of short, stupid drinks because I just drink too many of them. So I drank with the boys. I, you know, developed an attachment to the rugby scene. So we get to go out and drink all the time. When you're watching a rugby match in the pub, it was just a perfect way of doing it. And all my friends drank. I didn't really drink more than the people I knew. You know, so it was hidden from me, I think. And I never drank in the morning. I never drank to go to work. I never drank to do stuff. I'd never thought I needed it. It was only when I really started giving it up that I began to understand how much I needed it. But that moment in the car completely freaked me out, absolutely. And I suddenly realized, I could have killed somebody, and it wasn't that I could have killed myself, because that wasn't an issue. People at the time, I quite often had suicidal thoughts and thought that people would be better off without me. I considered myself to be damaged goods, not to have anything worthy that was going to be of any benefit to my kids, so that actually, if I disappeared, it wouldn't be a problem. But the fact that I could have made my children the children of the drunk who killed somebody else, that absolutely freaked me out, really freaked me out. So I started Googling what to do if you have a drink problem. And I did it several times in different combinations of words, and each time AA kept coming up. And I was just like, oh, well, this is nonsense, because obviously I'm not an alcoholic, because that would be crazy, I mean, an alcoholic is, male, old, dirty, lives in the park, wears a raincoat, as somebody once said, talks to pigeons, has a brown paper bag with alcohol in it. I am so far removed from that. It's not true. So I'm obviously not one of those.
AA is the bottom of the barrel, but I'm up here. I just need to get a little program to fix this. I'm not there yet. I'm just.
I had no idea that the barrel had different depths. So for me, alcoholic was the complete dead end. Life is over. There is nothing and nowhere to go. And I did not associate myself with that. So I kept Googling other things. And eventually I did the questionnaire. That bit where it says, answer these questions and we'll tell you whether it can help you or not. So I thought, well, this is going to be the way, isn't it? I'll answer the questions, and this will be the end of this bit of today. And then I answered yes to the questions. And I answered yes to 7, maybe 2 more. I got to the end and it said, if you've answered yes to 3 or more, you may have a problem that we can help you with. And I was just like, what? 3? You're gonna be kidding me. I've obviously answered them wrong. Answered them wrong. I must have read something wrong. Right, let's do them again. So I did them again and again and again, and then I went away and came back and did them again. And there are moments in my recovery that are real turning points for me that I look back on with such gratitude. And the fact that I did not lie when I did that questionnaire, even though I said maybe to 2, which were obviously yeses if they're not no's. So grateful that I didn't lie, because I know people who've lied when they did that questionnaire to get less than 3. So I didn't get less than 3. I stayed with my 7. I realized I needed to go to a meeting then to absolutely decide it wasn't for me because the questionnaire said it might be. So I was like, right, I'll go to a meeting. The meeting will tell me it's not for me, because there was nothing else. There was nowhere else to go. There was no social media thing. There was nothing. This was the only place where there might be an answer to what I'd just done. So
had you told anyone? Did you tell anyone this at this point?
What, that I was going to go to?
Yeah, had you confided anyone that where you were or what you were going to do? Or
no,
okay.
No, not at all. I told my husband about the car accident, and he was just mortified that somebody else had seen it and been involved. And then the next day, well, a couple of days later, he'd bought me a big glass of wine for my birthday. And I said, I think I'm really worried about my drinking. And he just said, you just don't know how to stop. That's all that's wrong. You just don't know how to stop. So I ended up ringing the AA helpline to find out where the meeting was. And this woman tried to talk to me about my drinking. And I remember just kind of shutting her down and going, I just want to know where it is. I don't want to talk to you. Go away. Leave me alone. I'm not having a conversation about your drinking or my drinking. And then she arranged for somebody to meet me, which was then all even more mortifying, because it was like, oh shit, I've got to go now. Somebody's going to be there meeting me. So I turned up to this kind of like really obscure street in the middle of Marlborough, and there was like a bunch of guys all stood outside smoking. And I was like, oh God, I'm going to start smoking if I can't drink. That's going to be the worst thing. And then this woman just kind of pounced on me. And Louise, is it Louise? I'm just like, oh. And I know, again, if I hadn't had her, I probably would have walked past, because it was just too intimidating. But she, you know, she grabbed me, got me upstairs, made me a coffee, sat me down, introduced me to people, and I was just, I didn't want to be there. I have never not wanted to be anywhere more, I don't think, than that point. And I was like, don't, this is not my life. And they were so chatty. They were all chatty, laughy, laughy. And I'm like, what are you lot on? What is this thing that I've come into? You know, I've not seen it in films. I have no idea. I had absolutely no idea what I was letting myself in for. I don't know how I've managed to avoid it in film and TV. I think my brain must have just switched off whenever it had come on. So I sat in this room with my legs crossed, my arms folded, my coat on. Don't talk to me. Go away. Don't look at me, face. And then it was a woman that shared. You know, it was a woman who shared. She'd got 10 years sobriety. That was the first point at which I realized they'd all stopped drinking. I didn't understand that either. And if I'd known that, I would never have gone. I would never have gone if I'd known that was what they were going to be offering me. And she was, you know, upper class, very good, you know, top quality background, the kind of life that you might aspire to, like I used to in those days, but I don't now. And her story was just heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. Her kids used to wake her up with coffee and vodka, and they knew to put vodka in the coffee, so they just gave her coffee, it wouldn't work. And I just kind of sat there thinking, this isn't it. This is not my life, you know. I'm 41 years old. I've got so much more to be doing. This is the end. This is the end. This is the absolute end. This is not me, and I'm not joining in with you lot. But somebody got me to go to another meeting the next night, at which I discovered their God element, and at that point I completely turned off, because I was like, right, I'm not doing any program thing. Nobody's telling me what to do. This sponsorship with a woman, are you kidding me? And then God, well, you can take that and put it somewhere that the sun doesn't shine, because that's just nonsense, absolute nonsense. But I listened. And at the time, it's like you said, you know, could I confide in anybody else? No, I couldn't tell anybody else what I'd done. I was absolutely mortified, completely mortified. Yet these people were talking about all sorts of things that were way worse than anything I'd done, way worse than anything I'd done. So I kept going back. People gave me their phone numbers, but I ignored them. I tried to stop drinking. We had our last bottle of red wine. My husband went to buy a really lovely bottle of red wine to go out on, because I said, if I'm going to go out, it's going to be on a decent bottle of red. So we had our last bottle of red. And then a couple of nights later, I had a beer. And then he went away for a few days. And whilst he was away, I cooked myself supper one night. And I thought, you know, I'll just have a something. There must be something in the house that I can drink to have with dinner. And I found some vodka. So I had vodka and orange juice with my dinner, because, you know, that's a go with your dinner drink, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And then I ran out of orange juice. So I just had vodka. And then I realized I drank half a litre of vodka in less than an hour. And I felt fine, right? Fine. My hand wasn't waving. I didn't feel sick or nauseous. I felt fine. And I thought, nobody drinks half a litre of vodka, half of which I drank straight, and feels fine. That's just wrong, right? Wrong. And then a couple of days later, 17th of April, I went to a meeting where a woman shared about how she'd been in AA for 12 years. She'd come in, similar age to me, with house, with kids, with a job. Life was functional. She'd done 12 years sobriety. It'd all been lovely. Oh my God, she'd done 12 years. That's a coincidence. She'd done 12 years, and then she stopped going to meetings. And then 3 years later, when she came back into the room, she had no job, no house, no car, no kids, no husband. She had the car, but she was living in it. She was living in this tiny little Ford Fiesta and drinking cans of lager. And I saw that. I saw that as a potential future point for myself. And that scared me. That's when I realized I had a choice, you know? I had a choice and I had to make it. And whether I felt I could own that choice, I don't really know. But I looked at death. I looked at death and I realized that actually, even though for the past kind of like 20 odd years, I had been dicing with death as my get out of jail free card, that I didn't want to die an alcoholic, and I didn't want to die drunk. I didn't want to die in a gutter. I didn't want to put my kids through that. So I stopped.
How long from that first meeting or when you had the car in the ditch before you came to that, okay, I'm
3
done?
weeks.
Okay.
3 weeks. 3 weeks where I was obsessed with it. It was the only thing I thought about. It was the only thing I thought about every day going to work. What am I doing? What am I going to do? How am I going to not do that again? It was all about, how am I not going to do that again? How am I not going to ever do that in that car thing again? Because I don't understand how I did that.
Do you know what my dread of those 3 weeks, my 3-week period was not how am I going to not do the ditch. Mine was how the hell am I going to live a life without having alcohol? How am I going to face this? How am I going to get through life without my beer? I had that scared the hell out of me.
Completely. And I think that's what I was bouncing through. I was bouncing around in that space of, well, I can't give it up. I can't give it up. Mm-hmm. How am I going to watch a rugby match without it? How am I going to eat spaghetti bolognese without a glass of red wine? How am I going to do my daughter's wedding? You know, my daughter will get married, there'll be champagne. I mean, she was 6, right? She was 6. But my head, seriously, Jeff, in my head, in that very first meeting, went to her wedding, right? Her wedding. There'll be this wedding, Louise. There'll be this thing. There'll be champagne. You'll need to go. You'll need to be there. You'll need to drink to be part of it. But I kept going back to that car. And I'm like, I cannot do that car thing again. I cannot do that car thing again. And then I stopped. And then it became the obsession, right? Then I began to realize I had the cravings in a way I'd never had before. It just took over. I ate chocolate like there wasn't enough chocolate in the world. I would hide chocolate in the house in case anybody took my chocolate. I had a conversation with my husband about my excessive chocolate eating. He even approached my mother to say, you need to talk to your daughter about her chocolate eating. She's going to get fat. Nobody ever talked to me about my drinking, but let's talk about the chocolate. Mm-hmm. But I refused to do the thing, you know. I refused to talk in meetings. They tried to give me readings and I would just say, no, thanks, I'm not reading. I refused to say my name. I refused to accept I might be an alcoholic. I just had to stop. And then I went to a meeting when a guy talked about his car accident, which was way worse than mine. He'd ended up in intensive care. He had no recollection of what he'd done. And I sat listening to this guy talking about his car accident. And I realized that whilst I was obsessing about alcohol and not drinking, my head had taken the car accident and moved it out of my view over there and into the back. And I had forgotten about it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely forgotten about it. And that freaked me out. And at that point, I kind of started joining in and kind of going, right, actually, I have this thing. I completely have this thing. I accept I have this thing now. I am powerless over it. It has me. My conscious thoughts and my conscious being is not enough to keep me from it, because it has the power to make me forget about that car accident. And I am never, ever going to forget about that car accident. So I started talking. I started saying, my name's Louise, I'm an alcoholic. I started putting more money in the kitty. I started acknowledging my birthdays. I started talking to people. I started meeting them outside for coffee and stuff. And I just started to kind of step into the community, not into the program, but into the community. And it was that beginning of stepping into the community where I started to feel safer. And I started to feel that actually perhaps there was something here for me. And then it became the new thing, you know, so it was like 4 to 5 meetings a week. I ended up going off sick because my body just completely dissolved into sleepness. My brain stopped working. And I'd go to lunchtime meetings, evening meetings, I'd have coffee. It became like a new obsession. I hardly really saw my husband. And then I had a really terrifying moment. I was in the kitchen cleaning up one evening. He'd left out half a bottle of wine and it sang to me. And it was like that mermaid thing, you know, it called me across the kitchen. Absolutely called me. My entire being was summoned towards that bottle of wine. You know, come here, Louise, come and have a little sniff. Come and have a sniff. A sniff will take the edge off. You just need the edge taking off. Have a sniff. And then I got near it. And as I got nearer to it, it kind of went, have a sip. You know you want a sip. Just a sip. And then, as I was kind of on the cusp of going to have that sip, I saw in the bottom of the bottle a dirty, slimy, smelly creature, a bit like Gollum out of Lord of the Rings, going, come here, my pretty, I want you. And I knew if I drank any of that bottle, that was where I was going. That was where I was going. And I was terrified. So I texted somebody, because I never called anybody, but I texted this girl and I said, oh my God, I nearly drank. What do I do? And she texted me back, you need to pray, Louise. And I'm like, no, seriously, this is really bad. Really bad. What do I do? And she just texted back, you know the serenity prayer, get down on your knees and pray. And I was just like, you have to be joking me, you know? For fuck's sake, prayer? Prayer to what? To what? What do I pray to? I mean, there's just nothing. That's just nonsense. But I did, because I was scared, really scared. And I got down on my knees. I can remember where I was. I can remember how awkward and uncomfortable and ridiculous I felt. And I said, you know, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. You have to help me. You have to help me. I cannot do this. And I went to bed. And then I got up the next morning and I did it again. And it changed. It changed. It's like that moment when you're driving past a lorry in the pouring rain, right? The rain's thundering down, you're driving past the lorry, your windscreen wipers are going 10 to the dozen, but they're not quite clearing out the rain. But you know that if you keep driving, you will get past the lorry and you'll be able to see again. And it felt like I'd gone past the lorry. It was still pouring with wet rain. My windscreen wipers were going 10 to the dozen, but I'd gone past the lorry and actually I could breathe a little. I could actually breathe. And so I started really talking in meetings. I started sharing back. I would say, somebody would share, and the minute they stopped sharing and it was open for shares, I'd say, thank you for your share. This is what's going on in my head. And I would let my head have my mouth, and I would just go, this is what's going on. And slowly everything began to unravel, or kind of make sense from the unraveled chaos. You know, people talk about a washing machine head and full of words and sounds and images, and that's where my head was. And slowly, as I sat in meetings and said, this is where I am, this is what's going on for me, my life just started to slow down. And between that and prayer, I started to find myself living in a world that I could cope with. And that was just miles away from where I had been when I was drinking. Because when I was drinking, it was chaos, it was busy, I felt out of control, I was constantly trying to fix things, constantly trying to make things, I was very aspirational. It was just everywhere. Whereas at that point, it just began to make sense. And I was like, oh my God, this is why people do this. This is why people do this. I get it. I get it. This is how you live life, right? This is how you live it. You pray, you get in meetings, you speak the shit that's going on in your head, and it all becomes doable. Oh my God. So I did the step 3 prayer. And then I ended up adding the Francis of Assisi prayer, sometimes associated with step 10. I found the sponsor. I started to work the program. I completely and utterly, you know, I spent ages on step 1, which I think is really important. I completely got my powerlessness over everything. I completely got my chaos, my unmanageability when I was drinking and before that. And then I did that thing of just going, right, God, have my life. Here is my life. Where do I need to go? What do I need to be doing? Give me the things that I need to be working on, because I don't understand which of those bits need doing today. And it just happened. I became like this path where I would just do the things laid out in front of me. I would deal with my job, the way I need to deal with my job. Some of the challenges that I had at work just disappeared. It was just amazing. You know, I had a project with like one of the most bullying sponsors going in the organization, and it was being handed over to me. It was my first big piece of work. And the day after I took it on from the previous project manager, the sponsor got a new job and just vanished. There were people in my team I didn't get on with. They got different jobs. There was a piece of work that I needed to do and that I hadn't done, and the date changed. I mean, it was just honestly, it was beautiful, just beautiful. And I just kind of handed it over. I had an issue after a couple of years where my sponsor relapsed. I realized I was on the edge of meetings. My head came back. I had an issue at work with some woman, and I had loads of justified anger and issues with her, and I behaved really badly. And I had to get back to meetings. I knew I had to get back to meetings. And I sat in this meeting going, right, God, you need to help me get back into meetings regularly, because I need to go to an AA meeting every single week, because I have gone loopy and I'm nearly lost it. And I'm really grateful that whilst I lost it mentally, I didn't drink. You need to help me get back. And they need a tea person. And you know what it's like, they need a tea person. They say, oh, we need a tea person. Anybody want to do tea? And it's generally a newcomer role. And I sat at the back of this meeting going, I'm not doing fucking tea. Newcomers do tea. I've been sober for 2.5 years. I'm not doing tea. And then the other bit of my head went, tea, Louise, would be really good. You'd have to come every week. You'd have to talk to people, do tea. And I sat with the two parts of my head having this blazing row. And it felt like they were discussing tea for like half an hour while my head was arguing with itself over it didn't want to come every week and it didn't want to talk to people. And the other bit of me going, we need to be coming every week. We need to be talking to people. And eventually my hand just went up and I said, I'll do the tea. And again, one of those moments in recovery where thank God I did that. I went back every week. I then did secretary for another 6 months. I then took on treasurer. Somebody said to me, you don't want to do treasurer. You have to come every week for 2 years. And I'm like, if I'm still in this town, why wouldn't I want to come every week for 2 years? Oh my God, that sounds like the perfect thing to do. So I did that. I've had several bouts of therapy whilst I've been doing my recovery and covering all the shit around my childhood trauma. And clearing my way for that. I have become grateful for all the things I used to resent, all the things that made me angry, every moment in my path, every moment. Every moment in my path, regardless of how painful it was, I am incredibly grateful for, because only because of all of that did I get to where I am today. And I love that. I love that I can sit with moments of pain, because they are still painful, and be grateful for them, because I know I needed them to get to here. They're part of who I am. They're part of how I made my life the way it is. When I realized I needed to leave my husband, because it wasn't safe for me. And I was 5.5 years sober. And he was the love of my life. And I only married him and had kids with him because I thought it was forever. And I had to leave. Because he wouldn't talk about it. He wouldn't talk about it. He wouldn't make any changes. We were in the darkest place, financially, emotionally, physically. The whole thing was just awful. And I sat with God and I said, how do I leave? How can you ask me to leave him? How can you be telling me that this isn't going to work? And it's that thing, you know, somebody wrote something the other day that we get signs from God. First they're a feather, and then they're a brick, and then they're a house or something. Just like, yeah, you know, I had a lot of feathers and I had a lot of bricks, and then I had the house moment of, you have to leave this man, Louise. You have to walk away. You have to walk away from your family and your house and your kids, because if you don't, you might drink again. And I was paying all the bills. I had no money to rent anywhere else. I couldn't do anything else. He wouldn't talk about it. And then a friend said to me, you can come and stay with me for a month. And I kind of went, okay, I can come to you for a month. Right. That can be my step. And I can still remember, you know, sitting down with the kids and telling them I was going. And when I left him and I did that, I had no idea if I'd ever see them again. I had no idea what he'd do. I had no idea what would happen. I had to put my complete faith in God that my path to leaving them would be the right thing for all of us, and that he would hold me with that, and that he wouldn't do something awful, but that if he did something awful, I would be able to live with it. That was the hardest thing I have ever done. The great thing is he didn't do anything stupid. They are still here. They did come and live with me, which I wasn't really expecting. So I ended up being a single parent full-time with 2 teenagers. And kind of sitting with God and going, well, you didn't tell me this was going to happen.
Another hammer.
Thanks God for this one, because this is hard. But you know, it's that thing of how amazing that I could do that. How amazing that I can do this. How amazing that I found a new home for us. We furnished it with help from friends. We started again. You know, I worked full time all through that time. My daughter had a complete breakdown. She's still building that back. Just blows me away that I did that. Blows me away. But I was helped. You know, he found me the path every time. You know, I was staying with a friend. This is my favorite recovery story. I was staying with a friend. The kids weren't living with me. They were still with their dad. I still had no money because I was still paying all his bills. And I was sat in an AA meeting, right? A Saturday evening AA meeting. And there was somebody else in the meeting who'd come into AA when I had, but hadn't been able to get sober. He'd still been drinking, got serious pancreatitis, in and out of hospital all the time. And I sat in this meeting and I said, you know what? I find it amazing that I have no fear of financial insecurity, because even though I have nowhere to live and I'm living out of my car in somebody else's spare room, I know that God will look after me, and I know that something's going to be okay. At the end of this meeting, the guy turned around to me and he said, I might actually be able to help. And he rarely went to that meeting. And he said, I'm about to go to rehab for 6 months. I need somebody to house sit for me. It's fully paid for. All the standing orders are covered. You just need to pay bills for your usage. And I was like, what? He said, I've got two bedrooms. It's just down the road. You know, it's like 10 minutes from your kids' school, half an hour from your work. And I drove home from that meeting in tears, absolutely blown away by timing. And that moment when God just went, here's your next step, Louise. Here's your next step, Louise.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had those all the time, you know, all the time. Here's your next step, Louise. Here's your next step, Louise. Letting go of where I'm going, the big plan, and just going, God will show me where I need to be, what I need to be doing, and I will just do what is asked of me. And when I do what is asked of me, it's just beautiful, you know. I gave up work in September because I got offered redundancy. I got offered the chance, you know, to write. I'm writing my novel. I'm 2/3 of the way through it, and because I got, you know, and I got offered this redundancy thing, and then Laura started doing lunchtime in the UK TLC meetings. And would you like to do one, Louise? Well, yes, and I can because I'm not working. And look at what that has done. I mean, that's just been, oh, I am going to cry now. That's just amazing, right? Being part of TLC has been the most beautiful experience. Humbling every single time. Blown away by the fact that anything that I say that has been passed to me or been my learning is helping other people. There is nothing more amazing
Hey,
than
I'm one of
somebody in
those.
recovery.
I'm one of those people.
Just blows me away. Blows me away. You know, I sat in those meetings for weeks going, I'm not speaking, I'm not joining in. I was not allowed to speak as a child. I've really struggled in the workplace to find my voice. And yet I sit in this space with you lot, just blown away by it. Blown away by it. I feel so very humbled. So very humbled by that. And so I get to sit here with my 12 years,
I know.
12 whole fucking years. And you brought me balloons.
Well, these are, you talk about God bringing you bricks. These balloons, he didn't bring me these balloons. Those are for you. He gave me plenty of bricks in life. But I got a couple questions that I have to, and we will have, we'll put this in the chats where links where you can rewatch this, which I will be doing myself numerous times. But so this can be rewatched at later times whenever you want. Couple questions, and I'd probably lose an order here. When you went in the ditch, I talked with a person just this morning who's in that recovery, not recovery, and they have not put their car into a ditch. And what do you say to them? Because they have not, they haven't put their car in the ditch, but they know that they probably need to stop. How do you get that? What do you say to them before they do the ditch or something even worse that's not there yet?
So I talk about my experience because that's what I know, yeah? So I always talk about my experience, and I say, yeah, you know, I used to go to meetings and people used to tell me I wasn't an alcoholic in a meeting. I had a woman tell me I wasn't an alcoholic because I hadn't been arrested for drunk driving. And she'd been arrested 3 times for drunk driving. 3 times for drunk driving, and she still hadn't stopped. And I kind of went, I don't want to ever be arrested for drunk driving. I love the fact I haven't yet been arrested for drunk driving. I have done my shit, you know. I've done my shit. I've had the pain, and I am done with it. And then I'd also say, come to meetings, listen to what other people have gone through, who have gone further than you have done, and the consequences that has had on them and the people around them. But then also listen to the people who are now sober. Listen to the way they are living their lives. Listen to the things that are happening to them, right? Do you fancy some of that? Do you fancy some of that? Because let me tell you, right, I had absolutely no idea that any of that could be for me. And I sat in meetings going, I just don't want to feel like shit anymore. I just don't want to feel like shit, and I want to stop wanting to drink. The rest of it, all this stuff that you lot all talk about, having, you know, life beyond your wildest dreams, bollocks, great, fantastic. That's not going to come for me. And then that has come for me, right? the stuff that comes in sobriety, the lives that people get to live, the joy and the gratitude that people have for a way of living. The people I know in sobriety are the ones who have the happiest, most fulfilling lives. Why wouldn't you want some of that? Why wouldn't you want some of that? And I'll tell you something else, right? I tell her as well, there's a group of people who all want to help you get there. You're not going to have to do it on your own. Don't sit there and think it's going to be hard and how can I do it? Because there are going to be other people who will want to help you get there. There are going to be people who will give you their time to help you get there. It doesn't have to cost you anything. It's just beautiful, but it's hard, you know. I didn't see it. I didn't see it.
There's no
that.
This is why I'm here right now with you, because I tried this on my own.
Exactly.
And I'm 0 for, and I don't even know how many attempts, but it wasn't until I stuck my hand out and grabbed hands that were already extended to me. You know, It wasn't that I stuck my hand out and said, will anyone help me? The hands were already reached out. I just had to grab one. So now
I had this lovely moment, Jeff. So I just need to say, when
go ahead.
I sat in a meeting once thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to become me. I suddenly saw all these masks that I was wearing, and I realized that I had to take all the masks off and I was going to become me. And I was terrified, right? Because I thought that when I became me, people would run to the hills screaming at what they saw, right? At what they saw. That's what my head said. You take those masks off, you become you, people will run to the hills screaming because of what they see. I mean, whose head does that to somebody, right? For a start, whose head does that to somebody? But I took my mask off, I took my armor off, I took all the walls down, I laid myself bare and went, I have to be me. If I am not me, I am not going to get this thing. And when I did that, I found God sat waiting for me, going, lovely to have you here. I've been waiting for you.
Welcome home.
Yeah,
I'm starting now to actually starting to like the person I see in the mirror for the first time in a long time. I did not like to have to come face to face with him. And now I'm actually, hey, it's good to see you this morning. So the other one, now I come from an AA background, but this is non-denominational. Your support, I'm just glad people, but I'm going to throw it at you. Well, AA, yeah, but the whole God thing, I'm not there.
Yep.
And I was there, I understand. And it's a huge stickler. But the only thing that bothers me about that is that there are people that are delaying or foregoing their sobriety because of those 3 letters or the 2 letters of AA with those. So what is your advice there or thoughts there?
So try as many different meetings as you can, right? Lisa has a fantastic expression. AA meetings are like pants. You have to keep trying them all on until you find the pair that fit. Try on as many as you can. Look beyond the program. If it will get you in there. I didn't do the program straight away. I did kind of I found God before I started doing the steps. So I kind of had my 1, 2, 3 bits and then found a sponsor. Go to the meetings, find the people who are like you in the meetings, because there will be somebody like you. There will be somebody whose beginning was just like yours. There will be somebody who doesn't do the God thing and just go with it. I didn't do it. I thought it was nonsense. It was a good few months before I found one. And I know lots of people who do AA, who don't do God, but have a higher power of their understanding. Some people will say it's the room. The people in the room is their higher power, right? GOD stands for group of drunks, right? It doesn't have to be a religious God. And let's face it, you know, God was kind of taken over by religion. It can be what you want it to be. But it is more than me. My God is more than me, because stuff has happened to me that is not just about energy fields. I went from being, you know, Mrs. Richard Dawkins, God is just the greatest fabrication of mankind, to I have handed my life over to this being and this power, because when I've done that, it works. But I would say go for what you need from it. Go from what you need from it.
I think
what you need, right? Because it is the connection, it is the community. Take what you need, but be open. Be open to listening to where it could take you, and realize and remember how desperate you are for where you're going. Desperation got me on my knees. It was desperation and fear.
I think people get so caught up, and I'm guilty of this too, but of trying to put a definition of God, you know, a physical description. I don't care. It is whatever it is, but I can't do this alone. I've tried it with Jeff's superpower, and that works oh so well. So I don't care. The definition doesn't mean anything to me. I'm just open for any hand that's coming out, you know, and they say higher power. And I have, and yeah, I'm a God-fearing man. I'm not going to deny it, but my higher powers are this room. TLC is a higher power to me. The people, everyone on this thing, anything with you, with these people, with the rooms, I'm stronger than I am with just me alone when I'm with any of that. A podcast, a book of inspiration, those combined, I'm more powerful with that than I am by myself. So those are all higher powers. So I don't, you know, the definition be nothing. We got, Megan wants to jump on. If you want to say hi, we will go over as long as Louise can stay. But I do have to ask you one that I'm getting, we're really starting to open the doors up, and we're going to do more shows about this, but is trauma. I'm hearing the word trauma and I am the howdy doody of recovery. I've never been in a ditch. I've never been in jail. I've never been to war. I don't think I had trauma, but I'm starting to explore back in things that weren't front page news, headline news traumas, but they were in the back of the paper, but they were stuff that affected me that looking back were reasons why, not that I drank, but they were things that when I drank got solved. You know, my shyness, my nervousness. I couldn't talk to girls without alcohol. And I found that even though I drank for fun, I realized, hey, this solves problems. Well, the issue is that my drinking took away my ability to handle problems like normal people do or non-drinkers do. I lost the ability to cope with problems, to cope with anxieties. I drank them all away, or drank at them immediately. And I lost the natural ability of how I'm supposed to manage those things. So all I did was bury them down, and they just build and build and fester, even though I don't even see them because they're buried under so much stuff. They're there causing a lot of, so the trauma thing is huge. And I was thrilled to hear you mention that, because that's something I really want to learn more about and discuss down the road.
Okay. So the key thing with trauma is that it doesn't have to be a capital T. It can be a little t, right? Little t for trauma. And it's about the impact. Trauma is about the impact of something on us, not necessarily the thing itself. So it's how we feel about a thing that happened to us or a circumstance. And it doesn't have to be an abuse trauma. It can be a neglect trauma. It can be a time trauma. It can be about where we are as children needing to learn various things from the environment around us, and that environment not being able to provide us with those lessons at the time at which we need them. And then we learn coping strategies that in the end no longer serve us when we get older.
How did
how I look at mine.
How did you find yours, Louise? How did you even develop? Because I didn't know that I had until weeks ago that trauma was even a part of my life. And I'm still just learning this, but how did you discover that stuff?
So it's not necessarily something I'd be comfortable to talk about on a live space.
You can tell me later in private. No, that's okay. What would you recommend then?
I shared it on TLC, and I think I talked about it on TLC.
You can just go, what are paths that you would recommend for people to do if they want to do that? Therapy, okay.
Therapy to help you uncover it. Because one of the things is that it comes out in the way we react to certain circumstances as a grown-up. So as an adult, there might be certain things that I respond to in a certain way, being completely vague, that aren't necessarily adult type behaviors, because I'm going back to my child behaviors because those are triggering circumstances. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
There will be certain triggers and certain behaviors and certain characters that something will happen and I will find myself behaving in a way that makes me go, hang on a minute, what am I doing? That's crazy. I don't want to behave like this. That's not like a proper adult person would respond. And I have to go away and understand more about what was going on in that moment and understand where my reaction was coming from, to then kind of have a conversation with myself about the fact that I don't need to be there anymore, you know. And Jodie White, I've done some courses with Jodie White. She does a lot of stuff. It's called Love Addiction, but it's really about inner child work, and healing our trauma as children to reparent and love ourselves. So she does this thing where she has the wounded child, where there are various behaviors that we hang on to as a wounded child. We then learn coping strategies, which are our adapted wounded child. But what we need to learn how to do is to love those two, bring them together and find our functional adult self. And we had this fantastic moment where she did, we got to imagine our functional adult selves, right? And what's a good spot is, I kind of saw myself as Wonder Woman, which was just fabulous, right? I'm sat in this thing going, I can't be Wonder Woman. That's just crazy, right? That's crazy, isn't it? How ridiculous. How ridiculous that I see my functional adult self as Wonder Woman. And then actually, do you know what? If my functional adult self is all about being calm, supportive, engaging, nurturing, why wouldn't that be Wonder Woman, right? Why wouldn't that be Wonder Woman? And how do I be more of my Wonder Woman part and less of my other parts by bringing those three together? And it's being able to explore that in a space with other people where I can work it through, talk it through. Talking is the only way that therapy works for me. Writing helps a bit. My book that I'm writing is a novel about a woman who needs to give up drinking, bizarrely. And I think there's a lot of stuff in that is unpicking a lot of my deeper processing stuff that I need to kind of write it out, but I'm writing it out as a set of different characters, not just one. But it is about going back and opening the box with help and understanding what was going on for you at that time.
Is there going to be a chapter about your favorite Zoom interviewer that you've ever dealt with? You know, the Wonder Woman thing, first off, while everyone else was after Farrah Fawcett, I was in love with Linda Carter. So from Wonder Woman, she was my favorite. But the powers that I never could have done what I'm doing now. I was scared to death to speak in public. So many things that just in this last year plus of my sobriety, these superpowers that I feel that I had given up on. I had given up on the ability to achieve, and that's come back. I had given up on the ability to dream, and that's come back. That's a biggie, because I was just, betterment was not even in my dream scope. Hope, my dream was not to get caught or to go further into the hole today. That was my dream for today. And that is so freaking liberating, to be able to dream on the positives and not just the negatives. That's huge. Megan, she had her hand up. I don't know if you're rushed, but you get a couple if you have.
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here. I've got 8. I'm fine.
Yeah. So great. So if you want to say hello or throw your hand up, and we'll bring in what we can for a little bit. Megan, go ahead. Welcome.
Hi, Louise. Congratulations.
Hello. Thank you.
You're so inspiring. Oh my gosh. You know, I just was thinking on so many things that you said, but how when you took that test, you know, the test that we are asked, and it was the first time that I was really honest too, that I checked all the boxes. And I thought to myself, how can I be so highly functioning in so many parts of my life, and yet I'm not happy, and I really haven't been honest. And now all of a sudden I'm, you know, splurting it all out and laying my life out. It was pretty incredible transformation for me. So I know that I can say now, well, you know, I've been waiting for you, Megan. You know, yeah. I'm glad that I can look in the mirror and say that, because I feel really whole now. And even though I thought I was before, you know, raised children, did stuff on my own, had the job, nothing compares to the joy and the peace that I feel right now. So when Jeff asked earlier, what do you say to someone? It's like, don't you want this feeling? It's so cool. So I'm so glad to be on with you this morning. You're a hero, Wonder Woman to all of us who are listening. And Jeff, thanks for making this happen. And congratulations.
You know, Megan, I'll throw this back at you, though, is that, don't you want this feeling? I couldn't relate to that feeling when I was drinking. The only feeling, I just didn't want to lose the feeling, or that I got when I was drinking, or I didn't want to have to face the feeling that I was fearing of living tomorrow without alcohol. So I had trouble relating. It was almost goofy that I saw in Louise, I'm an AA, in like when you came in, everyone's happy and joyous going, I'm so happy to be sober. And I was like, you're crazy. Okay. You are brainwashed beyond belief. I didn't believe it. And I didn't want to look as goofy as they looked to me at that point. As crazy as that is.
Yeah, but we didn't know what it was. We didn't know what that feeling really was until really we were able to embrace it, you know, and understand it. It's better. Yeah. Glad to be home.
Thanks, Megan. Mm-hmm. Louise, the one you said, your sponsor, I think, after 12 years and had gone out, but you had said, I think, that she had 3 years, that she had for 3 years had stopped going to meetings. And one that I hear a lot is suffering from burnout. And I can do that with anything. And that scares the hell out of me, because if I stop doing what I'm doing now, you know, with meetings or whatever, because that is the common, and it's not just an AA thing, because you hear they stopped going to meetings. Well, that can be, they can stop doing whatever it is your program is. So yeah. How do you, well, I don't want to keep going back to AA, because there's so many people that aren't involved in AA, but in their recovery, just going, okay, I can't do another one of these. I got to do something. Suffering from the burnout is what scares me. So how do we deal with that?
When you say burnout, do you mean as in going to too much?
It's just, it's lost. I'm tired of it. It's just enough of it. I've heard the same thing over and over again. It's now become a chore versus, you know, for me, meetings are, I look forward to them, but now it's like, oh crap, I got to go to my 5 o'clock meeting. And that, I don't want to lose that.
So get somebody to hold you to account. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the sponsor role works in AA, but have somebody to hold you to account. You know, I sat down with my kids once and I said, if I ever turn around to you and I say to you, do you know what? I think this not drinking nonsense is gone past now. I think I'm ready to maybe start again. You are to take my phone off me and you are to go through every single name that has AA next to it and you are to ring them all up until somebody will come to my house now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that means I've lost it. So that's my one thing is, you know, I've got them on the hook. But it's about staying in the community. I stopped going. I thought I was doing okay. Life got busy. You know, this is about 2 years in. The only meetings I went to were when I was asked to share. So I spent probably about 8 months only hearing my own story. And my head went. My ego came back. There was loads of stuff. I saw what was going on before I drank, and I'm really lucky, which is why I now go to a meeting every week. And then I had a dip a couple of years ago. I wasn't very well, and I did 90 meetings in 90 days again, which I didn't do the first time around. So I think the only thing you can do is just be cognizant. You've got to be cognizant of it. You have to take responsibility for your own recovery. You know, it's that thing, isn't it? You can't do it alone. This is your thing. Only you can do it. You have to be cognizant of it. You have to hold yourself to account. You have to make a commitment, because if you don't make it, like I didn't, it wanders off. It will wander off. And if you find that you're doing too many, don't do the alcoholic thing of going from all to nothing. Just kind of rebase. And for me, a couple of times I've just had to get back to basics of going, right, actually everything else has to go. So if I'm going into a space where it's all going wrong and I'm not well, everything else goes. My recovery is the last thing that goes, right? Everything else goes first. I would step away from my job, step away from my kids, step away from everything if I felt my recovery was under threat, and I would go back to basics.
The last thing, and what scares me, what you just said, because you almost said the word that we all hate to hear, moderate the meetings, because moderation for me with alcohol was, I'm going to cut back and not exceed 30 beers a day. That was moderation. That was the only moderation that worked for me, was keep it under 30. And I'm definitely the all or nothing guy. That scares me, because I'm 100% or it's off, you know, and finding that balance is something I have to do.
But it's also one of the things in recovery, isn't it? Is about learning new behaviors. So for me, you know, if I sit, when I first sat looking at kind of the whole step 4 thing, I just did what are the 7 deadly sins and what are the 7 behavior things that we need to be looking to do. And it's stuff like patience and tolerance and harmony. And actually, if I proactively look at how I bring those into my life, those are the things that have improved the way I live. So I am changing how I deal with stuff and finding more balance, rather than being this all or nothing person. I'm starting to get better at understanding where is the balance point. And then that comes in everything. That kind of just changes everything for me. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. All right, last question, I promise. And this, I could go on for 38 hours, but I look at the people that say, I quit drinking and my life is still sucks. And for me, my recovery is a 2-part phase. Phase 1 was, I got to stop drinking. And I thought that was the only problem I had. I thought you take the beer away and magically my family, my job, my happiness, my health, everything is just going to be beautiful. And that wasn't the case. And it wasn't until I started working on the reasons that made me need to drink or have to drink. So when you hear someone that says, I quit drinking and life is still, I want to ask, what are you, you know, where is your
What are you doing differently?
Yeah, what is the stage 2? So what are your answers there? Just
so it's about finding finding the things that used to trigger drinking. So, you know, my work would trigger my drinking. I'd come home from work stressed. So I would lead into a glass of wine. Right. How am I no longer going to come home from work stressed? I have to stop coming home from work stressed. End of. And if I sit in my working day and there are things in my job that are creating too much stress, I have to change the way I do those. So initially for me, I just used to delegate everything to other people. So as a project manager, there are always people in your team who want to do more than just their job and who want stretch opportunities. So I would give most of my job to other people for those stretch opportunities. So I have a team of people who are growing and being nurtured, but actually are helping me because they're reducing my stress levels. So it's about understanding where your stresses come from. When you're reaching for that wine bottle or when you're craving that wine, what has been happening to you and what have you been doing that has triggered that? I mean, this is one of the reasons why in recovery, they say, don't make any changes, don't enter into new relationships, don't do new jobs, you know, actually get used to living your life the way it is now, because adding stress and adding change actually is a big trigger. It's a big trigger for people. And it also gives, you know, it gives you the opportunity to look at the bits in your life that you need to be working on to actually not necessarily make better, but to be able to do in a way that is more you, so that you are then triggered less.
Louise, thanks so much for joining us. Stick around. We're going to end the broadcast, but just go into the private extra innings if anyone does want to just say hi or check in or whatever. So, but you have been such a massive help in my journey. And I think for, you know, inspiration and hope, I know those are overused, but I just see what I could be, and that's awesome. It's the best. So thank you for sharing.
My pleasure.
You're
absolutely
amazing.
My pleasure.
All right, everyone. We're out of here. I'll be back Tuesday evening. We got a couple of really, really good stuff coming up. Our own Kathy is gonna next Sunday. We've got Amy Dresner is going to be on Sunday evening at 8:00 Eastern, telling her story, which is going to be crazy. So get your the earmuffs for the kids that you don't want to hear, because the 4-letter words will be a flying, unlike Louise's meetings. But no, so thanks so much, everyone. And also we got a big week, so we'll have stuff posted on the sites. Thanks, everyone, and be safe and have a great weekend. We'll see ya.